Hey y'all, the Homestead Artist here. Thought I would pop on and say hello. And today I'm doing just a series of, different paintings, the same painting but different palettes. So same paper, but I'm doing different palettes. I'm using the rubber masking so that I'm using a different technique. This one is actually dry paper, and then you just use your masking tape or masking paint. And the next two, I'm actually doing a technique that I learned on the internet recently, and it is wet into wet. So you take your brush and you put a wash over your picture, and so you have the top of your tree picture, which is what these are, and you just put a wash of water over it, and then to soften it, you put the masking on, and to make it feel a little bit more feathered on the wet into wet rather than the dry paper. The dry paper will give more of a hard line to your top of your tree. To prevent the hard line, you use the wet into wet method to give it a more feathered, softer look to your paper, to your tree top. I actually liked both methods. I think they look great either way, but you can be the judge of that. So with that said, here I am making the background to those tops of the trees. Again, I'm using different paints. The first one I used Winsor & Newton. The second one I used what was called Prima Woodland. Never heard of that brand before, but I really like it. And then this one is the Master's Touch, the Hobby Lobby brand, more or less. It's a little bit cheaper, The Winsor & Newton is a good bit more expensive. So same with the Prima Woodland, but the Master's Touch was much cheaper. Oh, right. So this was Winsor & Newton. This is the Prima Woodland paint, and this is Master's Touch. I have to say that I like these two the best, the Winsor & Newton and the Prima Woodland, mainly because, and this one's pretty too. I mean, this is the cheapest out of all of them. This was the cheapest. This was only $6.99 for this little half pan from Hobby Lobby. I got all of these from Hobby Lobby. Actually, the Winsor & Newton I think I got from Amazon. But yeah, this little half pan was only $6.99 from, it was actually on sale, so it's like 30% off. So I got it a lot cheaper. But the Prima Woodland, this one, I have to say it was the best purchase I've ever purchased from Hobby Lobby. Where I found it was actually, somebody had stashed it somewhere in the yarn section. And I picked it up and I was like, I wonder how these work. And they have not disappointed. They're probably by far the best paints I've ever bought. So if you ever find this brand, it's Prima Marketing Incorporated, but it's the woodland kind. They have different ones. They used to carry all of them at Hobby Lobby, but they decided to take them off the market and just decided not to sell it anymore. Now they're only selling Master's Touch brand, and sadly they pretty much taken all the better watercolors off the shelves. They've taken, I don't think they sell Winsor & Newton anymore. I guess they're just kind of going their own route. They just want to sell their own watercolors and not have to worry about other types. The Winsor & Newton Frisket, or the masking, if you can see the way that I did it, it's a little bit different than the other ones. As you can see, there's more of a hard edge on this one than there are on these. They're more like feathered in a way, and this one's of a harder edge. The only reason I did that was I wanted to show you what it was like, what it will look like if you do a hard edge or if you do a feathered edge. I mean, if you're doing like the top of a tree, which is what this is supposed to be, is the tops of a tree with a background of like a greenery background. I just did like a little section of it. It's not, I wasn't gonna do a whole tree, whatever. I just kind of wanted to show you what when you use the Frisket or masking, if you use it in such a way that gives it a hard edge or a more feathered edge. You kind of want the feathered edge if you're doing a treetop. You kind of don't want the hard edge, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what when you do, when you go in, if you want a hard edge, what you do is you just paint water like I did before. I've painted some water around the edge along with some up in here. So, but then instead of waiting for just a few seconds or whatever, I waited for like a minute before I actually started, you know, put the water on and then wait for a few seconds and then go in and put your masking in, because if you wait too long, you won't have that feathered look to the tops of your trees. You'll have more of a hard edge, and you don't want a hard line or anything like that when you're doing trees. So, but yeah, these worked really well. And when you go to draw your line for your treetops, when you go to put the masking on, you just kind of want to put it, so pretend like this is the line where you drew your pencil lines. So you just kind of want to put it on the edge. You put your masking on the edge of, like not like right on the pencil line, but a little bit away from the pencil line. So that way, when you go to put your masking on the wet paper, it just kind of starbursts out and gives it that feathered look. So when you go to brush your wet brush, and then you would just kind of go in over the pencil line. So you have a pencil line, and then you take your water and you just kind of paint over the pencil line along the pencil line as well as outside of the pencil line. So that way, when you go to put your masking on, then instead of it just having a hard line like this up against the pencil line, it actually kind of starbursts and kind of feathers out into the wet, like wet into wet, and it just feathers out. So it gives it more of a feathered look or a treetop look rather than this hard line that you don't want. So hopefully that's helpful when you're going to do backgrounds and foregrounds. So if you're doing like a tree and you have the background, this is your background here, and then you have your tree, and this just kind of shows you how to make a lesser like very hard line. You want more of a soft kind of feathery look to your tree. Hard lines is pretty much what I used to do, but now I know how you can make that feathered look to your treetops. Okay, now we're going to paint our with our paint, the different types of paints that I have. We're going to paint our trees, so that way we can complete our painting. All right, it'd be better if I had cleaner water, but we're just gonna go with what I have. And I've got some sap green and some yellow ochre, a little bit of extra water. I'm gonna add some cad yellow first. I'm gonna actually put that in on there first. It's always good to start out light and then work your way up to the darker. Just gonna put that on the edge. Add some water, extra water. That way we can do a little bit of wet into wet. And then add some more sap green to that kind of almost darker. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge because I don't want to get rid of that yellow. Kind of gives it more of a highlight. Especially since this one's more of a hard line anyway, so. I'm just going straight into the sap green to give it a little bit more of a darker tone in some places. And then I'm going to add some, that's ultramarine. This might, I don't know if it's cobalt. I don't think that is. That might be ultramarine. This might be cobalt. Yeah, that's more cobalt. And then add that to my green. For a little bit darkerish. And then you can also add a little burnt sienna to give it a little more darker. Some shadows. All right, and that will be it for the Winsor & Newton. Let that dry. I even kind of give some extra highlights. Mop up some of the water. Okay. All right, now next will be our Prima Woodland brand. I think I like the Prima Woodland better because of the fact that I paint a lot of trees and things. That's tend to what I go for is trees, and that sort of thing is more my specialty, like landscape stuff. I think that's why I kind of go towards this more. But yeah, this is definitely so much better with the feathery tops and that hard line. Gives it more of a realistic look to it. And for those of you that are wondering, I'm painting on arches. It's an arches block. If you don't understand what that is exactly, I'll show you what it looks like here in a bit. Yeah, I have since learned that I prefer the artist block over just loosely paper. A friend of mine actually gave me this block. She didn't need it anymore, never used it or something, and she had it in her closet, and she's like, would you like this? And I'm like, I never turn away paper. I never turn away or turn down free paper ever. That is like, especially arches, because arches, for those of you that don't know anything about art of any kind, arches is by far the best paper out there on the market. Even the old great masters will tell you that, if they were alive to tell you. But yeah, definitely the best of the best kind of paper. The only thing I don't like about this paint, it doesn't have my favorite sap green. This is a type of green. I think it's more of a phthalo green, which I do like it, but it's not sap like my favorite color. I prefer the sap green. It's my favorite of the green family, but it's easily can be made. This green and burnt sienna mixed together with a little bit of cad yellow, and you should be able to get that kind of sap green look. Yep, I definitely like this paint so much better. Like, Winsor & Newton is good, but I don't know, I just really like, I don't know if it's the color palette or the way it goes on the paper. I mean, it's kind of a cross between the two for me. I don't mean to bash an old type of paint, but I really have to say that this one is my favorite. All right, I'll let that one sit and dry because it's got some wet paper on it, or wet paint on it. I really need to get some clean water. So, all right, I think I got all the Frisket off. Yeah, this is very, very pigmented. It's like this one, it's extremely pigmented, which might be the reason why I like it so much. Winsor & Newton tends to be a little bit less pigmented. And I like the more pigmented, get more bang for your buck. Yeah, I really like this technique. I'm pretty sure we'll be using it from now on. this is very, very pigmented. Not the color I was looking for. I thought it was more of a burnt sienna, but it's not. This one's probably more so, yeah. I almost kind of want to go over there and get some of that paint, but gotta use the kind that's all over here. Yeah, it looks really bad, but oh well. It's been a while since I painted, really, honestly. But I think that'll be good for now. Let that dry. Yeah. Sop up some of the paint. Make it dry faster. All right. Okay, so this is the one that had the hard edge. It actually kind of gave it a little bit more of a feathered edge, even though it started out kind of hard. So it actually doesn't look too bad. So I was pleasantly surprised. And this one actually gave a little bit more texture to the actual tree itself. And that was just wet into wet on both the tree as well as the background. So yeah, this one definitely is great for this type of thing. So whether you make the feathered look or the hard edge, it actually works either way. So moving on to the Prima, I actually added a couple extra coats to this one, but you know, I kind of like this one actually, because I only used one coat on this one and two or three coats on this one. Although I do like the you know, it's very pigmented, and I also really like the colors on this palette better than I like the colors on this palette. But I think this one probably won over this one as far as even with like the feathered look. I mean, you can still kind of see the feathered look, but then you have the problem with the background. You have like a little bit of the too dark almost on an edge, and that's one thing I noticed when I went to paint, is that you do end up having that problem. So it might be better to do like wet into wet. I did wet into wet with this one after I took the masking off, and I didn't do wet into wet with this one, which I probably should have done that. That would have given it a softer edge, which this one I did the wet into wet, and it seemed to have a little bit better, still has some, you know, some spots where it has darker pigmented paint, and then this one didn't, you know, it's all the way, it's every part of the edge. So, but this one definitely works better if you do wet into wet rather than just straight pigment paint. So, but overall, I think for this type of thing, this one or this one probably wins. As far as if you want the hard edge, this one definitely wins. If you want more of a feathered look, this one probably won over this one. Yeah, and the color scheme and the texture and stuff on this one was great. The texture on this one was actually pretty good too, for being as cheap as it is. This one, however, did not do good on texture, and so it's a toss-up between this one and this one. What is your view on that, and which one would you say wins? I'm probably leaning more towards Winsor & Newton, but I like this one too. So which one wins in your book? Let me know in the comments. All right, so for those of you that asked or wondered what a Arches block is, this is what it looks like on the cover. And this is a cold press, 140 pounds, and there's 20 sheets. So basically an artist or any kind of block that you get, like a watercolor block, will have this glue on the side. It's like black glue, or it could be white glue or clear or something. But this one's black. And then on this side, you have an opening of your paper. So most people, when they take the paper off the block, they use a knife or, you know, or something, a sharp edge of some sort. But most artists will recommend that you use a credit card of some sort. I have this one, my Ollie's card. No, this is not an advertisement for Ollie's, though I really do like their store. Because I do, for those of you that know me, you know I love a good bargain, so. But anyway.
This is in no way sponsored by Ollie's at all.
But anyway, you take your paper. See, I got my paper right here. You take your card and you stick it right so, like so, and then you just kind of push it through. The only reason why most people don't use knives is because if you use a knife instead of a card like this, it could potentially scratch up your paper for the next painting. Those of you that don't know anything about watercolors, if you have a scratch on your paper, it's like you might as well just throw it away, because it is extremely hard to take scratches off of paper, because it'll be there permanently, even if you put watercolors on it. When you go to paint a surface that has been scratched with a knife, that paint will actually not soak into your paper at all. That's why you want to use a card instead of a knife on your paper. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and so that you can see more of this type of content. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.